The future and superheroes, it seems like something that's very much in tandem, but when you stop to think about it, my brain just melted. This is one of the hardest videos I've made purely on a conceptual level because I was looking at this like this is going to be such a layup. How can I mess this up? But then I was over here like writing in my book and I'm like, wait. When you think about the future, there's only really post-apocalyptic kind of dystopian versions of the heroes that we see. Days of Future Past, Dark Knight Returns, Kingdom Come. A lot of it is just our heroes that we know today, but brought into like, I don't know, 20, 30 years into the future, and now they're just suffering. And the entire concept of this is heroic legacies that go all the way into the future. But then I realized there's only really two that popped up in my brain, and these are the characters that I'll talk about in the beginning here. And I was like, wait, when you actually go through the list, most of them are actually kind of bad, I know. And they have literally tarnished the branding of these characters. They have brought their cities or even the world or just their little area, their pocket of that universe. They brought it down so bad. Batman of Bethlehem, for example, with Damian Wayne. Yes, we do see through like Wonder Woman Tom King, through some sort of multiverse shenanigans here and there that he ends up changing the future and it doesn't go that way. But the most famous stories that I could talk about is when he literally turned Gotham into a blazing inferno. He wasn't able to keep it steady. And then eventually, if we look at Tynion's run of Batman, Tim Drake had to come in and kill Damian. If that's even canon, I don't even know. The future is never set in stone. But I was over here thinking, wait a minute, hold your horses. Future successors can also be future characters that could take up the mantle. They could be characters that are literally here in the moment right now, who could take up the legacy later on in maybe subsequent books if we make it to that era, or in like future like Elseworlds, what if storylines, maybe even future events where we get a glimpse of what's to come. And that made all of this so much more easier because I love talking about the potential of current characters and seeing how they could fit in that legacy mantle, because there is so much potential for them to be better in terms of maybe how they approach crime fighting, in terms of their relationships with others, keeping their brand and their mental intact. They're able to juggle better than the hero right now. And yes, that mantle carries more weight than what they're holding at the moment, but we can see that they are fit for that future calling. And from there, my brain just started sparking. Even from a power level, a lot of these characters are just better at that natural craft, but they're not as mature and they're not as experienced. They need all of that to come in before they can make their way into the big leagues. And today I'm going to be talking about my favorite future successors, whether they're actually from the future and there's no inkling of anything appearing with them in current comics, or they are a protege that we see and they want to be that next successor to the mantle. They want to be that legacy. They feel like they could hold onto the burden, or maybe we just see the potential in them and we're just hoping, praying that the mentor will actually see that spark, and they make sure that they're able to comfortably move and transition into that next phase. Remember to leave your favorites in the comments down below. Let's get to it. The first person who came to mind when I started thinking about this video was Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond, one of my favorite legacy characters of all time. And this is honestly the reason why I didn't put him in my previous video. But this character, what I really love, is that we're going to be talking about the DCAU version, the most important one, and the one that everything is based off of. Even the current comics right now with like Batman Beyond, Neo Year, and Neo Gothic, really good comics, about 12 issues. And what I really like about those ones is that it's pretty much a homage to that era of Batman Beyond, right? The OG stuff, while also making sure that there are little cameos here and there. So because of that, everything is a template. All of that was already put in place. So now they can just build off of that and create new villains, or just make revamps of older villains. And that's what they do with, of course, a gigantic Godzilla Killer Croc, to even having something called the Living Gotham, an AI protocol that he has to fight day in and day out, and he has like everything taken away from him. He has to change his suit. He even has to deal with the death of Bruce Wayne, and then go on a complete regiment of training, locking himself in the Batcave just trying to get his mind right as the Living Gotham is searching for him. And while everybody is turning a blind eye to an AI that's literally controlling everything that they're doing. It's honestly just one of the best Batman Beyond things I've read in comics. 12 issues, Neo Year, Neo Gothic, too many series. I definitely recommend you check it out. But here, what we really got to talk about is how this character works, how he operates. He is Spider-Man, but in a Batman setting. Neo Gotham is one of the best cities I've ever seen in terms of ambiance, atmosphere, and just feeling like a cool cyberpunk universe, but just in a superhero coat of paint. We have cybernetics, we have splicing your DNA with animal DNA, we have a bunch of drugs, bullying that eventually gets turned into people turning into giant robot monsters or controlling that just to kill their bullies. It kind of reminds me of Static Shock, how that one kid would get a gun, and that was really revolutionary for cartoons. They just amped that up, right? We can't just carry out a laser blaster. Let's make it so that this guy has a giant mech when he's trying to off his bullies. They just took everything and dialed it up to 11. But here, he is a troubled youth. He's not exactly a prodigy or a chosen one. He was involved with like gang involvement, juvenile detention. He had a strained family life. So it makes his rise into being Batman very much like well-earned. He represents that anybody, no matter what your rough past is, you can grow and become a symbol of justice, of truth, of hope. And that's what he is. I remember he said a really cool speech with Bruce. I think it was during the Batman Beyond Return of the Joker movie, but correct me if I'm wrong. But here, Bruce Wayne is trying to get him to retire. He's like, you know what? You did so much for the legacy of Batman, and I honor you. You honored me. I'll give you the same respect. But I had no right to force this life upon you or any of the other proteges. And he claps back and he's like, no, I'm not like any of your other students, because unlike everybody else, Terry, he took that initiative. I guess Tim Drake is kind of like that too, but Tim never stole anything, right? He did it by the book. But here we realize this moment right here, being Batman, is what gives his life purpose. Terry, he's able to redeem himself from all of his past sins. If he could help one person every day, if that's the bare minimum that he could do, that is absolving everything, all the stains upon his soul. That's what he feels like. Yes, his slate was wiped clean, but something in his body, his very being, tells him different. And the idea, the concept of Batman is what gives him a drive to be better, right? And this Batsuit too, it's very futuristic and it adds the concept of being larger than life, no longer limited by human frailty. But even with all of this technology, what matters the most is that person deep inside. Pause, but no, just being completely serious. There's this one episode, I think it was called Lost Soul, and from here, Batman had to fight a cybernetic computer called Robert Vance. He was one of the top echelon guys of this mogul giant conglomeration of just tech companies that kind of made itself into one, and he digitized his soul into this living computer, kind of like what I said before with the living Gotham, but very much scaled back. And here, he ends up taking over the Batman Beyond suit. It's really cool. But now Terry had all of his advantages taken away from him, and here we see him talk about the moral debate. He was a Batman that was given everything. His suit had all the gadgets, all the strength augmentations, all the agility augmentations that he needed. Yes, he was really good at street fighting and he was pretty acrobatic and in shape, but was that all you needed to be Batman? Well, no, there's also the mental, the mind. Yes, you don't have to be as smart as Bruce Wayne. You have him in your ear. He is your man in the chair. All you really need is the necessary street smarts. And here, he didn't have the luxury of having Bruce help him. So we see him take the Nightwing mask and a giant, like, bow staff, kind of like a Tim Drake-like weapon. And we see him go back and fight against the suit. And then he thinks back, wait a minute, in the first episode, I'm getting a little bit meta here, Bruce did something that shut me down. There was a kill switch, so he ended up using it and actually using a bunch of electricity to his advantage. So we see the smarts, what he's really capable of, despite just being a teenager. He mirrors Bruce Wayne, but also in a more fractured light. He had a more strained relationship with his father, but that was cut short by murder. Terry's last argument with his father, Warren, added another layer of guilt, making his quest or whatever against crime a lot more deeply personal and emotional than the normal average Joe. Maybe not to the same degree as Bruce Wayne because he devoted his entire life to it. It still shows us that his journey was built on grief and vengeance. But unlike Bruce, he has the high school aspect, all of his friends there, the Spider-Man-y things that I was talking about. And here we see him have his school, friends, families, romance with Dana. All of that adds a constant emotional tension, something that Bruce never had to experience. And that's what I love about superheroes. A lot of people don't like it, but the soap opera aspect of it is what really keeps me in the game. I love all that juicy emotion. Okay, that sounds crazy, but it's really beautiful. And while I will keep Epilogue a secret because, yes, I honestly actually know. Wait. Let me go on a little bit of a rant because I know a lot of people don't like Epilogue, but when I think about it, you only really dislike the concept itself. You can dislike the idea as much as you want, but seeing people call it trash was crazy to me because I recently watched it and it is a top 5 at max top 10 DCAU episodes ever, just in terms of writing, the way they stylized their editing, the cinematography, everything that they did, the voice acting, the way that it looped around and made a complete bow at the end of it. This is the perfect ending to Batman Beyond. Yes, you might not like everything, but at the end of the day, he's not exactly what you think he is. If you look at his hair, I'm trying not to spoil, if you look at the hair of himself and his parents, there's no way that made any sense, you feel me? Even the hair of his brother, all of that was just foreshadowing, and you're gonna tell me with a straight face that Dwayne McDuffie is a bad writer, and Paul Dini, and Bruce Timm was a bad director. Just get out my face, bro, come on. Batman Beyond really just showed us what Legacy is. It's not about copying the past. They're about redefining what it should be for the future. That's exactly what he did. An epilogue in and of itself doesn't change that. He is the great character that he always was. And he just got elevated, in my opinion, just from that connection. But yeah, Batman Beyond, Terry, he really needed that movie, but they just went for Minecraft. I don't know what they were thinking, but at least it made them a lot of money, you know? So it's like, fair enough. And now we have my goat, Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara, not the one from the movie, the one from either the comics or, let me just kind of break this down a bit. He was a huge part of my childhood. And before I go on any further, I'm going to reiterate to myself and to everybody here, I love Across the Spider-Verse, nobody call me out on that. The way they adapted Miguel was perfect for the storyline, right? Because he fit the box of what they needed, and the aura was immaculate, but that wasn't Miguel. That was probably closer to Superior Spider-Man, but a lot more sympathetic. Either way, Miguel, the reason why I love this character a lot is similar to my reasons for Batman Beyond. It stems from when I was a child, which I'm sure it's similar for a lot of you, a shared experience, yes. And here I'm going to bring you back to the DVD sets of the Batman animated series. I had all of them, 4 of those. And then I had the Batman Beyond DVD set, this giant box with like 6 or 7 DVDs, all of them for different parts of the 3 seasons of Batman Beyond, and even an extra disc for extras. For Miguel O'Hara, what I have is Shattered Dimensions, Spider-Man, and Edge of Time, some of my favorite superhero games of all time. Shattered Dimensions is one of the most fun Spider-Man games. I'll mark that on everything I have. And Edge of Time is one of the most underrated Spider-Man stories. Peter David was in his bag. Rest in peace, Peter David. He was one of the real ones. But what I love about Miguel is that he is a legacy character, yes, but he's not repeating Peter's story. He's evolving it, but there's also bits and pieces here and there that mimic the past. Everything is like a loop, but because he's in the future, Nueva York, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it, 2089, a little year gotta add on. It is very much unforgiving. While Peter's mantra was, with great power comes great responsibility, if I was going to give any sort of bar to Miguel, it would be, with great corruption comes the need for resistance, because in his universe, this cyberpunk universe, he has to deal with Alchemax. And if you played any of the games, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These giant, humongous corporations that basically own the world. He carries the weight of all these Spider-Man themes that we know of, like guilt, responsibility, sacrifice, but he applies them to this new world, which sucks a lot more than Peter's New York ever did, which tells you a lot, because Marvel New York is probably the one place in comic books that I will never want to be. I will rather be in Gotham. I would rather be in Neo-Gotham than ever be in Marvel New York. I'm telling you, that place is trash. Imagine Gotham and Metropolis and all of the DC cities combined and all of the problems they have, and apply that to the square footage of New York. An entire country to Marvel's New York. You know how many heroes they need in that one location to deal with all of the street level and cosmic threats that go to their doorstep? I'm telling you. But to go back to a bit of that conceptual aspect and how Peter and Miguel mirror each other, they never wanted their abilities, at least in the way they got them. Miguel, he was studying the Spider-Man Peter Parker, his DNA, to replicate those abilities. What would you call all the spider people in Marvel? Let me know your name for them in the comments down below. Spinnerets? I don't know. But it was a blend of sabotage, desperation, survival, and all of that is still the idea of Spider-Man, right? It's all circumstance, but also a lot of bad luck. His powers are a lot more arachnid than Peter. He has enhanced vision. He has organic webbing. He even has organic talons. He has fangs that can actually paralyze people like Hulk 2099. In essence, he is a lot more Spider than Peter ever was. And the more I think about it as I'm speaking, a lot of the discovery of his series is very Shakespearean in emotional weight. I suggest all of you to read Peter David's Spider-Man 2099 run. In fact, his work on Edge of Time is a banger, one of the most underrated Spider-Man stories of all time. I will reiterate that again and again, because people really just trash on that series because of their prior knowledge. They played it once when they were a kid, and they assume it's trash because people don't talk about it enough. No, that story is still better than Spider-Man 2's story. Spider-Man 2024. I'm talking about that one. That's how you know how serious I am. But as a character, he's a lot less idealistic, a lot more, I don't know if traumatized is the right word, but he's a lot more jaded, right? He's more willing to be brutal, but he's trying not to cross certain moral lines because he knows at the end of the day what a hero and an anti-hero is. He knows where the line is, but sometimes you gotta make tough calls. But he's still very much noble, so much so to the point that he's actually able to lift Mjolnir. Yes, this man is worthy of Thor's hammer. He didn't gain any extra abilities from it, but the hammer made sure that he had extended longevity. He would not die from old age. It extended his life so that he would live thousands upon thousands of years. It was more so a symbolic element when he was a leader of the world, actually. A lot of huge calamities were happening, but in 2099, Manifest Destiny, that storyline, he actually had that hammer and used it to show his power, his position as one of the leaders, bringing humanity into a new light. It is, in effect, one of the craziest endings I've ever seen for a Spider-Man, and one of the few times that I could say, probably without a shadow of a doubt, where a character actually surpasses, at least in terms of universe logic, his predecessor. This is Wally West here, and this man is not getting the recognition that he deserves. I'm telling you, I love Miles Morales, but he is the definition of potential man, because there is so much stuff you can do with him, but Marvel is so predetermined to keep him locked back, unless it's a movie setting. But Miguel here, he deserves all the flowers. Clap it up. One of the highest peaks of achievement you could probably ever hope to have. And it's a Spider-Man character. Enough said. Speaking of Spider-Man characters, one of the most important next generation characters that I don't see enough people talk about, because in the Spider-Man fan base, we all know this, there's so much infighting that it really makes it hard to even care about being a Spider-Man fan, because everyone just makes it worse. There's so much like debate between Miles Morales and this character, and why can't we all be friends? Spider-Man would be ashamed of you. But this character is Mayday Parker, and unlike all the other Spider-Man type of characters that take over the mantle, what works conceptually about Mayday is that she is the natural heir to the Spider-Man story. It's kind of like a Batman and Robin situation. Somebody here is stepping into the costume. She is the daughter, biologically, of Peter and Mary Jane. It's the literal embodiment of their love and all the sacrifices that we've seen over the years in main canon. Obviously, this is an alternate continuity storyline. With these types of storylines, it finishes with the end of the protagonist's journey. So might as well just take all the stuff we know about mainline canon and just plop it into this version, right? That's what I do, and I'm sure you guys do it too. But going to what makes it special, her origin, it's both inheritance, but also a divergence, right? She inherits all the powers and the instincts of Peter, but like all of the journey itself into becoming Spider-Girl, it's marked by choice. Peter, that was complete circumstance. Those powers were thrust upon him through tragedy. Well, the story itself of him becoming a hero, not just being a complete a-hole, is because of tragedy. Mayday, she chooses to embrace that mantle out of responsibility. She's learning her lesson early and the thrill of saving people. And unlike Miguel or Ben Reilly, who I love deeply just as much as Mayday, maybe even more because I'm more familiar with Miguel, she is proof that the Spider-Man story can be about passing those ideals to the next generation. It can be the Flash effect, but Spider-Man writers in current continuity are so afraid of Peter growing up. This is such a travesty. Imagine this, because Peter Parker's storyline, even in the 90s, it was moving at a breakneck speed compared to other characters. We saw it moving very quickly, almost on the same pace as Wally West, because of course he was more established as Peter Parker Spider-Man, while Wally was just coming into his own as being the Flash. In the 90s, Wally was married, and in the 90s, Peter and MJ were ready to have a child. So you see where they were at. It's really sad that Wally has so superseded Peter's story. But if everything went according to plan, I think Mayday probably would have been maybe 14 or 15 years old right now. At the most, she would be like John Kent age at 17, 18, around the Tim Drake area. That is what I see, and imagine how cool that would have been. But the emotional hook of a lot of these storylines is the relationship between her parents, Peter, who is retired over a lot of the years of all this pain, and there's a fear there of repeating the same mistakes, and that adds depth, that adds realism. What parent wouldn't want to protect their child from a life of violence, of tragedy, especially if you've already been through it? Her early adventures, what I really like, is a push and pull, I think, between her desire to be a hero and her parents, their desire to protect her. It's very deeply human and relatable, far beyond the traditional superheroics, but of course that is a staple as well, but just taken with a Spider-Man spin. She also suffers from like Parker luck, I guess, balancing school, friendships, romance, all that stuff, and the burden of being a hero, but unlike Peter, she doesn't really have to deal with the crushing loneliness that he had to experience. Of course, she deals with highs and lows, and she's not just a Mary Sue. She makes mistakes, accidentally hurting people, struggling with jealousy, or even falling out with friends. All of this keeps her grounded, but she never lets it break her. Her storylines, from what I recall, because I read it a long time ago, it's a test of her commitment to doing what's right when it directly conflicts, I'm pretty sure, with her desires, right? Whether it's like romance, popularity, family, security, she consistently chooses responsibility. That is what a hero does, and that is how she proves herself to be worthy of the Spider-Man legacy. Now we gotta talk about my girl Cassandra Cain. Cassandra, the best Batgirl there is. I will fight anybody on this. And what I really love about Cassandra, as a character, she started off as a mute type of person because she never learned how to talk. Her father, David Cain, was one of the best assassins there was, and ever since birth, he made sure he had all of his energy put into her fighting. She's one of the top 10 best martial artists there is, and that's crazy considering her age. She's very young, but she's even able to put Batman on his butt. I don't want to say that she's better than Batman in terms of being a martial artist, but she has a lot of cool martial art hacks abilities that make us see that she is definitely ready to be Batman. I know a lot of people are like, wait, why should she be the next Dark Knight? She is literally a woman, which I know that is a crazy thing to say, but it is pretty valid, right? Batman, not Batgirl. Cassandra is the only person I would let this slide for, because for some reason, I just look at her and I could see myself saying Batman, even though the Cassandra fans, please tell me I'm not alone in this. But her entire story is one of coming out of the shadow of her parents, because her mother is also Lady Shiva. So two of the most deadly assassins there is your parents. That is the hardest nature versus nurture battle you could possibly have. But nature ends up winning in the end, but then it also gets nurtured through her new father, of course being Bruce Wayne. This is his daughter, bro, the daughter of the Bat. She is as valid of a child to Bruce as any of the Robins. She is just as, if not more, devoted to the cause than everybody else. Yes, Dick Grayson might be one of the best Batman replacements there is. His run as Batman is goated, one of my favorites, and he learned that you can change up who you are. You don't have to follow the Batman legacy bar for bar. You can actually transcend it and add what you previously had into that mantle, making it your own. But Cassandra would probably be the best fit for replacing Batman. She is Batman in a lot of circumstances, but of course a bit less developed. One interesting thing in about like issue 50 of her Batgirl run from 2000 to 2006, there's this little excerpt right here where Bruce says, "I need to know once and for all where your loyalties lie, Cassandra, with your father or Barbara or me." And yes, this is a father-daughter moment, but when Bruce asks this thing here, it's never really fair. It takes a lot of hard work on his part and his partners to build up this certain trust, because he takes it really hard when the people he works with don't have faith in him and his mission, and if they don't trust him fully, it kind of shatters him a bit. And this kind of mentality, at least for a little bit, ruined a bit of his relationships, but of course eventually this does get melded. But here she points at the logo and she's like, no, not you. This, the mission. Yes, she was once a cold-blooded killer, but now her code, her moral code, is probably as strong, if not stronger than Bruce, because this is what keeps her human. after years upon years of taking lives in cold blood. There's this one instance in Detective Comics by James Tynion where Batwoman shoots and kills Clayface, a Clayface that was previously reformed but then went off his rocker, because you have to remember Clayface and his abilities all stem from the mind. His powers mess up his brain and it turns him into a very psychopathic killer, but once that gets fixed, he actually ends up being a good guy, and we see his true self spark out of it. There are moments where Clayface is naturally calm and can work with Batman, but in general it will go back to normal. And then we see here Cassandra bawling her eyes out after losing a friend. Clayface, during his time as a hero, would end up speaking a lot of Shakespearean and a bunch of different poems and plays, with Cassandra actually helping her to build up her speaking skills. And she's like, why? He could be good. He could be saved. Of course, her speaking is a lot more simple at this point in time. And he's like, no, you are hurting him. Yes, Kate did have her own reasoning, and it did make sense, of course, because she didn't want Clayface to go on a rampage. It ended up with a full circle moment. This Cassandra wasn't the same as post-crisis, at least at the time. DC continuity does get a bit weird. She does a cool thing right here where she rips off the Batman logo, and she's like this. The symbol, special, right? She says that. Of course, you can see the 3 dots here because, of course, I don't want to explain it again. It means don't kill. It means never kill. Cassandra, it's going to be okay. It will be okay. And Batman hugs her, and he gives Kate the craziest death stare of all time. He's like, you're my family, but not today. I love Kate, by the way. She has one of the best Greg Rucka runs I ever read. I love it. And the art, too? Chef's kiss. But right here, we see how much the idea, the concept, the symbolism of the bat means to her. So much so, if we're going to move on to Ram V's Detective Comics run, where everybody in the Bat family has to fight the Orgums or the Orghams, however you want to say it. And here, what's really interesting is that they have telepathic abilities, the ability to completely ruin and destroy a memory from a city. And they've done this a lot of different times throughout history to change the course of history so that they can come in and actually make things right, whatever their right really means. And they got rid of Batman entirely. They hung him in front of all the people of Gotham. They mind-controlled everybody to be against him, but Batman's speech was so cold that everybody, or at least a good portion of people, were against it. They were like, spare him, and they ended up, quote-unquote, killing him. And then it changed everybody to go back into that mind-controlled state. And the Ten-Eyed Man, of course being revamped to have a lot of these cool precog abilities, realized that there was a Batman-shaped hole in Gotham. And here we see Cassandra fighting Lady Shiva. It's really interesting, actually. I kind of want to read this entire fight here. She's like this. She knows that voice. It belongs to the coldest killer she has ever known. But for 9 months, softened by tissue and brine, it was the only voice she had ever heard. I can feel your eyes on me, child. Get down here. Let me look at you. Despite herself, she obeys. Who are you? This Vonderville tumble is not my daughter Zucchemi. And she's like, couldn't help yourself, could you? We saw him chained, humiliated, hanged. You saw an opportunity. And she's like, really? Another tedious airing of grievances. I don't have time for this. Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, Jurism, I'm not going to pretend I know how to pronounce that. A risible attempt, at least. You fight like somebody twice your size, Rutling. Keep it up and you'll shatter every bone in your body. And she does a bunch of pressure points and she's like this, of course, how typical of you. As the memory of the Batman fades, you seek to rekindle it the only way you know how, by becoming him. And that's really interesting. She mimics his fight style. It's almost like she's fighting with cinder blocks. All of this is her way of grieving, a way to make sure that she's able to keep the memory of Bruce alive. It's fascinating. She fights 80 pounds heavier and a foot taller. Against normal opponents, that would be fine. Against Lady Shiva, that is a death sentence. And it shows you how she's committed to fulfilling the role of being Batman. But once she goes back to being her normal self, she ends up working shop on these people. Even fighting against Asmers, demon-like supernatural entities, she uses a batarang and stabs them multiple times in the back through pressure points and gets rid of them just like that. So she is highly capable on a Nightwing level, in my opinion. And right now she's having a fantastic run in the comics, really building up and showing us how she could be a solo hero. All of this, she is figuring it out as she goes, and she is doing a damn well good job. I'm tolerating no slander. And finally, we have Irey West, the daughter of Wally West, one of my favorite characters, and in turn, because of how much I've read with Wally West, she has become one of my favorites as well. Yes, Wally West's kids, Jai and Irey, are twins, and they are both severely underrated. And the thing about Irey, unlike Jai, is that she is very much in tune of what she's supposed to be. A lot of people have a lot of negative pushback or like, what am I doing? There's this psychological trope and struggle with young legacy heroes, which is like, am I a hero because I want to be or because I'm expected to be? This is what Jai experiences and why he doesn't want to be a hero after everything is said and done. He wants to be a normal civilian, which is kind of ironic considering he is a Speed Force equivalent of Franklin Richards, but it does come back because it makes sense. Franklin Richards as a character, he makes sure that he only gets his powers one day out of the entire year. Out of 365 days, he only has it once so that he can save the world. Every other time, he is a normal human because he's afraid of what he will do with all of that power, which is very responsible at his, like, I don't know, 14, 15-year-old age. Good stuff. But what I love about Irey is that she knows that the end goal is to be the Flash, and she makes sure that that is going to be who she is. We see a lot of alternate timelines, or even in the future down the time stream, that she is meant to be Flash, whether it's through wearing a normal Flash costume, or if it's to wear her Kingdom Come suit, because we see that all the time. Even in Jeremy Adams' run, we see her in the future with Planet Flash, an entire like solar system planet area where it is the domain of the Flash, and it's basically a utopia there. It's great. Their own little space in the cosmos. Wally West, he doesn't have to worry who is going to be that next person to step up, because she is, I don't want to say arrogant, but she is aware of how much of a prodigy she is. And I would be exactly the same. She's also very impulsive, which makes sense because she was briefly under the moniker of Impulse during post-crisis. Very brave, very sporadic, very energetic, but also very sure of herself. But she does have very unique and cool abilities that make her stand out and really reinforces why she has all of these personality quirks and behaviors. In terms of intangibility, she is very much at the top of her game. Her control is so good that she's able to pickpocket another speedster who is passing through her in the opposite direction while regaining solidity. That is crazy. Most speedsters wouldn't even be able to do that because you are phasing through somebody who's also phasing through you while also maintaining like solidness, picking it, then maintaining phasing and taking yourself out. That's like putting your hand through somebody. Imagine the Flash TV show, CW, and Zoom puts his hand, vibrates his hand through your heart, and then he makes it go solid. It's gonna blow up everything in your frontal cavity, whatever that is in your chest. For her, she would be able to go through your chest, grab your heart, and take your heart out of your body without destroying the body itself. That is crazy. On top of that, she is a master at any type of sensory ability, right? She's able to like sense other speedsters and conduits and know their exact location, even get an impression of what their condition is, whether they're in severe critical condition, whether they're maybe infected by the negative speed force. She will know all of this. She can even taste the flavor of their energy signatures and hear what they're doing from miles away. She's even able to trace vials of Velocity 9, which if you don't know are little vials or syringes that if you inject yourself with it, you then gain super speed. It's been around since like the 1980s. She even has like precog abilities, being able to sense the glow of a person and follow that trail stretching through the past and the future. She even does this to the embodiment and the Speed Force who was taking the form of a dog. She was Foxy, that was her name, and she learns that the Speed Force itself implemented and just pushed itself into the story of the Flash. Every major event that Wally was in, she pushed herself to be in that scenario, whether it's Wally outracing gambler gods, outrunning instant teleportation, and running with Crackle, to even the time where he first fought Eobard Thawne, and he beat him up so badly that he felt like, you know what, I think I got this kind of under control, huh? I could actually be the new Flash. I don't have to be in Barry's shadow anymore. I don't gotta worry about that. Everything will figure itself out as we go if I just keep my pedal to the metal. She figures out how to do Speed Force energy constructs to levitate, to even absorb energy to the point where she's able to turn a bunch of Flash clones into dust. All of the energy of those temporal splits. And the aura that she has is really cool because she can mimic the aura of others to the point that did I just say Avengers? Justice League ID thought that she was Wally. On top of that, she could actually replicate the aura, the energy signature of another speedster to copy their unique abilities. Jai, he can teleport with the Speed Force, and she was able to replicate that on the spot, but unfortunately, she does not gain the proficiency that Jai has with the ability, and that almost kills her. But thankfully, she does have another ace up her sleeve. If she gains enough speed by absorbing it, she's able to momentarily boost her speed to an infinite degree, to the point that she's actually able to exist simultaneously at every point within a defined area. Basically, localized omnipresence. She's everywhere at once. The area itself is only correlated to the amount of energy she absorbs, and in the current run, she was able to cover every point on the surface of the moon at once. This is the power of the Speed Force, man, and Cy Spurrier, what I love about his run, I know a lot of people don't like it, is that he was able to make the Speed Force an actual power system, really developing what the Speed Force really is, how it works on a cosmic scale, and how we're even able to create Speed Force classes. All of these characters have different abilities. Wally, of course, being the main protagonist, has a lot of the main core abilities and has defined and really stretched out the potential of a lot of them. But Irey and Jai, they have actually gained so much cool powers that I just can't wait to see what they do next. Irey, imagine her as the Flash. If she's able to gain localized omnipresence, which means being everywhere at once, imagine what she'll be able to do as an adult. And seeing how confident she is in her abilities and improving her abilities, she's going to reach there in no time. But yeah, guys, what do you think? Remember to leave your favorite next generation characters down below. It's going to help out all of us. We're going to have a lot of fun. I'm trying to do a little bit of like short videos here and there so I'm able to get out a lot more of the ideas I have in my brain, because it's really just a bunch of jumbled mess. And I'm trying to get it out in videos so that I don't forget what I want to say. But remember to leave your favorite next generation characters in the comments down below. I was going to talk about characters like Cable, but then I realized this man is way too old to be called next generation. Yes, I guess I can kind of fit it like that, but this man is like 40, 50, 60 years old, and he's stuck in the most apocalyptic futures there is. And he is limited by a techno-organic virus. He won't be able to reach Nate Gray X-Men levels. Guys, that's a generational pull right there. But, not really. But that's never going to happen until he gets rid of that virus. But the virus itself also gives him extra like superhuman strength and technopathic abilities that he wouldn't have. So maybe it's better that he stays this way just for the sake of being unique. I don't think he's going to change anytime soon. Also, I wanted to talk about the Legion of Superheroes, but I don't know that much about them, but I know they fit extremely well because they are the legacy of Superboy. Feel free to leave down below your kind of reading order for the Legion of Superheroes, because I want to get those characters under my bag, especially considering the fact that I know for a fact that that is where DC is headed next. I know they're going to drop a new Legion of Superheroes run, and I want to know more. I have mad FOMO, but if I knew more about them, they for sure would have been on this list, because I know that they were the legacy of Superman. He inspired a new generation of heroes in the far-flung future, the 31st century, to be completely accurate. Those characters came out of the efforts of Superman, and he was Superboy, of course, Clark Kent that is, when he met them. Imagine that, you are a kid just starting out being a superhero, and you see the work that you put in and the end result of all of that. All of what you're doing, it's not for naught. There is some sort of impact that you're going to make, and it's not going to be seen like 2, 3, 4 centuries down the line. It's going to be seen in the 31st century. Dude, the more I read Superman, the more he jumps up. I think he's actually my second favorite character of all time at this point, barely below Batman. But yeah, guys, leave your favorites down below in the comments, and see you all later. Take care. Deuces.